I want to welcome all of you, first of all, on behalf of the Columbus Bar Foundation, to this noble occasion and luncheon. I am Mike Carpenter, president of the foundation, and the foundation is, as all of you know, at its core, all about legacy. And there is no greater privilege on my behalf or anyone associated with the foundation than to thank all of you for being here today to celebrate the legacy of our honorees. Each has given 50 years of service to our bar and our community, and for that, we are truly blessed. This luncheon is our way of recognizing these distinguished honorees and the contributions they have made to our profession. Before we get into the more formal part of the program, I would like to welcome to the lectern our Columbus Bar Association president, Lisa Pierce-Rice, to say a few words.
Thank you so much. I'm going to echo much of what Mike just said. My name is Lisa Pierce-Rice. I am the current president of the Columbus Bar Association, and it is my honor and pleasure to be with you here today. This is one of my very favorite events of the entire CBA year, as we honor each of those members and recognize those who have practiced for 50 years, that magic number. But as I look down the list, I was thinking this is way more than a number. I look at the lawyers we honor today and realize what they have done for and mean to our profession and our Central Ohio legal community. They're not just outstanding lawyers, but they're also great community leaders, visionaries, and mentors to so many of us in the room. I'm also in awe of the legacy that they leave for us as the generation to follow. The legacy with its highest standards of practice, unfaltering ethics, and overall civility, which I'm afraid may be dying in many communities, is the foundation of our Central Ohio legal community, and in my mind, what makes the practice of law here so special. So it is my challenge to my peers that we continue to commit to protect and sustain this legacy as we honor these folks today. So I want to thank you all for what you've done for our profession, our community, our bar, and congratulations to everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Lisa. As I said at the outset, the Columbus Bar Foundation is about legacy. It's also about a group of hardworking and dedicated men and women serving as the philanthropic arm of our profession in Central Ohio. Your volunteer time, your financial generosity for over 30 years has made it possible for the foundation, in partnership with the Columbus Bar Association, to have a real impact on the lives of people here in Central Ohio. At the Legal Aid Society, at Nationwide Children's Hospital, at Community Mediation Services, and the professionalism of the Columbus legal community, helping our young people flourish through the Law and Leadership Program. Our work has been built on your broad shoulders and caring hands. We can't solve everyone's legal problems, but by working collectively over the past 30 years at the foundation with leaders and wonderful practitioners like those we honor today, we have been able to make a difference in some people's lives and to make those lives a little bit better. And for that, I salute you. Today, however, is a very special day. Today, we have assembled some of the most distinguished and respected members of our legal community. They have practiced and practiced well, and they have done so for 50 years, representing their clients and our legal community with grace, ethics, and the enormity of respect. Honoring them is truly one of the most valuable parts of the legacy of our foundation and for all of those who have practiced law here in Central Ohio. And without further ado, we're now going to proceed, and we're going to have the honorees come forward with their presenters. And here's how we're going to do it. Each of our honorees has selected someone who is special to them to present their award. We will call the presenters to the podium one by one, and then we'll ask them to say a few words and present the award. We have a number of honorees, which in and of itself is a wonderful thing. but we have had to ask everyone, therefore, to be brief. So if you hear music playing, you will know you've probably been talking too long. Again, thank you all for being here. As is fitting, we start with the Honorable Judge Sargis as our first presenter, to Tim Bainbridge. Your Honor. And you don't have to hold your applause, you can give it.
I've had the distinct pleasure of knowing Tim Bainbridge for 39 of his 50 years of practice. That gives you some idea of, first of all, how long we go back with each other, but also how old we both are. Tim was about 11 years ahead of me, so when I first met him, he was a very successful practitioner and always someone I wanted to imitate because he was always extremely well prepared, a great advocate, but also very civil and collegial. From the time I've known him to this day, I've never heard him raise his voice, say something in anger. I've always wanted to be just like him. He's aspirational to me. And when the governor picked him to be the chair of the Industrial Commission, I thought, what an inspired pick and what a great public servant. So congratulations on 50 years of great practice, only 50 more years to go. Thank you.
I don't know if it's proper to say anything now or not. I don't know if the honorees are required to do that, but I had no idea what I was going to do with my life after I graduated from college, and fortunately, I stumbled in the legal profession, went to Ohio State Law School. I think the Vietnam War had something to do with my choice to go to law school, but I'm very, very happy that I went to law school. I enjoyed the practice, enjoyed the friendship I've had with Judge Sargis. And I'm glad my family and my dear friend Pam is here. Andrew is an attorney, he's taken over my practice. Brian, Tom, Katie, my daughter-in-law, and Pam, of course. So thank you all for being part of my life. And thank you for my friendship with Ed Sargis, too.
Our next presenter is Ted Bebart, honoring Dick Bebart.
My name's Ted Bebart. I'm here to honor my father. It's a great pleasure. I've had my law license about 10 months, and there's many days I wonder if I'm going to make it a year, let alone 50, so it's a great honor for all of you in this room. My father is not only the best attorney that I've ever come across in my time, but he's also my hero. And I say that not just because he paid for all my schooling. I say that because I had the great pleasure of watching the collegiality and professionalism for which he conducted himself every day. And in that, it was always a tremendous experience to really understand what it meant to be an attorney, being a trusted counselor, being a super citizen to some degree that has a major role in ensuring that we do have indeed a just society. And I watched my father conduct himself in a way that carried out those goals every day. And he has a little joke around our house that he's riding a slow mule into the sunset of a mediocre career. And nothing could be further from the truth. The reality is it's been a blazing sunset of faith, hope, and love. And for that, I thank you today, Dad.
Our next presenter is Michael Evans, honoring Jim Blumensteel.
I have some notes from Bloom to make this short and sweet. It says here that he graduated from law school in 1967 with several of the people that I see in this room. Did you graduate? They threw him out, is what happened. And he was in the Navy, served 2-year tour of duty in Vietnam on a heavy cruiser on a gun line. He knew nothing about guns, but he had a lot of wit, so he made it through. Did you hurt anybody? Okay. And he came back to Columbus in 1970, began his private practice of law. He represented railroad union employees who had no workers' compensation program and therefore had to file lawsuits under the Federal Employer Liability Act. Litigated and tried lawsuits in every state east of the Mississippi and 3 states west of the Mississippi. Over the next 40 years, this guy's tried more cases than anybody under the sun, and everywhere. Actually, I was with him on a couple of them. He drove me nuts. Anyway, then he expanded his practice into other areas of personal injury work, wrongful death suits, products liability, and was very, very good at it, I can assure you. Now he's serving as a mediator based on his many years of experience. He's trying to get people to agree to things, and he says he's now pulling back and working down a few remaining cases and intend to retire within the next year, and he's been saying that for at least 5 years that I personally know of. So there he is, not yet retired. I want to add one thing. He's the wittiest human being I've ever known and the finest humanitarian I've ever known.
Well, that explains why he always called me a half-wit for all these years. Oh, pictures. Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Good seeing you too. Take care.
Bill Brandwine was our next honoree. Unfortunately, Bill was not able to attend, but we honor him in absentia. Alex Shoemate, to come forward to present to Alan Briggs.
It's a real privilege to have this opportunity to say a few words about my partner and indeed my friend, a person who has been a role model to every one of us who's sitting at the Squire table today. Like all of the presenters, I'm challenged to do adequately the kind of description that captures such a distinguished career as the one that Alan Briggs practiced not only in Ohio but throughout the country. After graduating from law school at Ohio State, Alan's always been smart about weather, so he moved to San Diego to escape the winter weather here in Columbus and practice in the JAG Corps in a criminal trial practice. 2 years later, he moved back to this area because he loves Columbus, joined the Dunbar Kinsel firm, later becoming Murphy, Young and Smith. And as many of you know, we had the privilege of combining Squire Sanders with Murphy Young in 1988. And thanks to Alan, that was a very successful combination, because Alan is a person who believes in the importance of helping others to do better. And as I think about Alan as a role model, he always sought to make sure, particularly with the young lawyers, that he was teaching them and being a true role model for each and every one of us in the practice of law. When the firms combined, interestingly, Alan and I tried a case together. Of course, Alan was the lead lawyer and I carried his briefcase. And as a result of our collective performance with that case, Alan went on to lead the trial practice at the firm, and I became a member of the public law department. But seriously, Alan was committed to Squire. He moved to Miami in 1991 because we needed a leader. We needed strength in that office. Alan became the managing partner of that office. After that office was stabilized and started to grow, in 1994, Alan moved to Washington, D.C., and once again became the managing partner of that office. A true leader, truly committed to this profession. As many of you know, he was the president of the Bar Association, founded a committee to engage in teaching younger lawyers about trial practice. And most importantly, as I said, Alan has been a true role model, committed to his clients and committed to making sure that our profession is an outstanding profession. So Alan, we salute you today as a leader in the practice of law, a leader in the profession, a leader in our firm, and just truly a great guy.
It's good to be back in Columbus. I had 21 good years here with the Columbus Bar, and since then I've been an itinerant traveler, traveling anywhere for a buck. And I've been with a lot of bar associations, and there isn't a better bar association anywhere in the country. We were all fortunate and are fortunate to be part of this organization. Thank you.
Richie Hollenbaugh is going to present today for Steve Enns. Thanks, Richie.
Steve Enns is a consummate professional and a really good lawyer. He's honest, straightforward, often blunt, always to the point, always looking out for the best interest of the client. Steve's from Columbus, Worthington, and Riviera, or Riverly, sorry, not the Riviera. He started college in Wyoming, but returned to Columbus to finish undergraduate at Ohio State and graduated from the law school at Ohio State. He practices in the area of estate tax, business formation, and all of the ancillary advice that goes along with all of that practice. Steve's had his own small firm in northeastern Columbus prior to joining Carlisle Patchen in 1999. Steve has a tremendous number of very loyal clients. Some interesting ones as well. One was Buster Douglas. Steve represented Douglas's business interest in boxing contracts in the 80s and 90s, and Steve was thrust into the spotlight when Douglas beat Mike Tyson in Tokyo in 1990 for the World Heavyweight Championship. When Douglas returned to Columbus after the fight, Steve's office was flooded with reporters, well-wishers, and according to an article in Sports Illustrated, upon his return to Columbus, Douglas caused a work stoppage in an office building when he visited his lawyer, Steve Enns. "Man, I've been in this building 2,500 times and nobody noticed me," Douglas said. "I see cameras in my sleep, Reporters from both coasts convened on Enz's office, and Douglas chatted for 3 hours before leaving the photo session for an appearance at the Columbus Touchdown Club. That was quite an era for Steve, and he has some mementos in his office that remember that. After that, there was the ensuing litigation between Buster Douglas and promoter Don King in New York. And although Steve wasn't the litigation lawyer at the time, he was there and was instrumental in crafting the settlement between Douglas and King, and also little known casino operator and promoter Donald Trump. Over the last 18 years or so, I've had a chance to work with Steve and see him interact with clients. He has true compassion for those in need, but little patience with those others. Although sometimes startling to me at first, his clients, loyal to a fault, always appreciate his bluntness, his honesty, and his loyalty. Steve has a compassionate side as well. He cared for his mother, who lived to the age of 99. He deeply loves and cares for his wife, Karen, of 52 years, who's with us here today. They have a daughter, grandchildren, and a son. And Steve has been involved in many civic and church groups, and he's most proud of the years of formation of the Central College Church Foundation. Steve is a terrific lawyer and a very good person. I'm proud to have had the opportunity to practice Steve for 18 of his 51 years, or 50 years. Congratulations, Steve.
Take a second to acknowledge the foundation. We talk about the Bar Association. We don't often talk about the foundation, but they do marvelous things. Thank you for this honor, and thank you for the work you do. You are the best of us. I would like to acknowledge also the folks from Carlisle Patchen who showed up today. I didn't expect this many, but I'm gratified. Again, thank you very much.
And now we welcome Jim Blumenstiel back to the lectern to present to Michael Evans.
First, I want to share with everybody the opportunity to speak about Michael Evans. It's just not only a privilege, but it's an honor. He and I have been friends for almost 54 years, and so this means a lot to me. And I really welcome the opportunity to talk about what a fascinating, unique, differentiated career this man has had. He, like I, graduated in the class of 1967 from Ohio State. He then went into the infantry officer candidate school and became an Army commissioned officer. And then he prosecuted and defended some 400 court-martial cases throughout his career in the Army. 1 year of it was spent in Vietnam in May of 1969 to May of 1970. And he traveled throughout the entire portion of South Vietnam, both defending court-martials and prosecuting court-martials. And there are very few of us that have had such a unique experience as he had. Then, in 1971, when his career in the Army was ended, he went to Newark, New Jersey, and became an adjudicator for the Veterans Administration Office, and he worked there for about a year. Then his career took a different turn, and he went to Elizabeth, New Jersey. And this time he went into the prosecutor's office and ended up with possibly 100 jury trials while there for just a couple of few years. I even remember some of them were really big time, important, nationally recognized trials, because I can remember reading in the newspaper. I said, oh my, that's got to be someone other than my friend Mike Evans. I can't believe that. But so he's just had a fascinating career. In 1978, he came back to Columbus, Ohio, and he decided to open up a general practice, and then that evolved into probate litigation, where he did wills, estates, and trust, and then handled probate litigation when somebody snuck in and got a guy to sign a will and give all the money to the waitress at the bar that he attended, something of that nature. But what amazed me, I've watched and known, and he and I actually practiced together a few years, but what amazed me is he had a tremendous reputation in the probate field. And in conjunction with that, he then took on a whole other aspect of his practice, and he started representing the Department of Mental Health and the Department of Mental Retardation and the ADAM Board in hospitals throughout Ohio. And he would handle the civil commitment hearings, whether or not someone should be committed because they are insane, incompetent, and for their own safeguard to be committed. And sometimes when people healed in those institutions, he would then handle the end where determine whether or not they should be released. And this was not just a, when I have spare time, I'll do this. This man handled those insanity and incompetent hearings, even in criminal cases, and over his career, in conjunction with the main thing of his probate practice, he attended and handled somewhere between 15 and 20,000 of these commitment hearings, and that's one hell of a lot. It makes you think that he's got to be at least 110 years old to accomplish all of that. But in closing, knowing Mike so well for so many years, I wanted to share with the people that as he was practicing in his firm and I was practicing in my firm, I would run into attorney after attorney and clients that actually overlapped. And I can honestly say that in the entire time that he was in Columbus, and I talked to many attorneys and clients, I heard nothing but the highest praise for this man, for being honest, for being kind, for being gentle. Never did I hear a negative thing. And I can't say that I could say that about a whole lot of attorneys. Our profession has some rascals in it. But Mike is really what this profession is supposed to be all about, and I'm proud to be able to introduce him.
Bloom embellishes a lot. Best thing about practicing law to me is the friends and acquaintances and colleagues and so on that you get to know and become friends with, and can get a lot of positive feedback. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
Our next presenter is Scott Whitlock, honoring Larry Fisher.
Larry Fisher and I graduated from Harvard Law School at the same time. We did not know each other there. One class together in 3 years, 263 other students. We met when we started on the same day at the Voorhees Law Firm. Larry became a distinguished member of the firm and of the bar, fellow and Ohio chairman of the American College of Trust and Estate Counsel. But it is his service to the performing arts to the preservation and reuse of historic buildings, and to the community that is extraordinary to the point of being unique. In 1969, when the Ohio Theater was scheduled to be demolished in less than 2 weeks, Larry was one of the 4 founders of the Columbus Association for the Performing Arts. 104 days later, CAPA closed on the purchase of the Ohio. As chair of the CAPA Building Committee, Larry led the restoration of the Ohio Theater, the expansion of its backstage facilities, the construction of the Galbraith Pavilion. Thanks in significant part to Larry's efforts, the Ohio Theater was the first great movie palace to be restored and put back into service as a complete performing arts center. That resulted in the theater being designated a national landmark, the leading example of theater restoration. Larry has stuck with CAPA. He has held every office in CAPA: secretary, treasurer, vice president, president, chairman, and is currently vice chairman, volunteering his time every week to handle CAPA's major projects. And he has played a critical, essential role in every major project, working with the late Catherine Levesque on her gift of the Palace Theater to CAPA, saving and restoring the Southern Theater, the Lincoln Theater, the Drexel Theater, CAPA's acquisition of the historic Schubert Theater in New Haven, Connecticut, the purchase of the Central Presbyterian Church, which will become another jewel of a performance space thanks to Larry's efforts, CAPA's contracts to manage the 4 theaters in the Rife Center and the McCoy Center in New Albany. But his impact on historic preservation in Columbus goes far beyond theaters. In 1975, Larry was one of the founders of the Jefferson Avenue Center. During his 42 years as trustee, it has restored 9 historic buildings on Jefferson Avenue, including the Thurber House, built 2 new buildings, and assisted with a 3rd it will eventually own. Those buildings serve as home to some 24 nonprofit organizations in Columbus. Larry left the Voorhees firm in 2004 to become the president and CEO of Columbus Downtown Development Corporation and to lead the redevelopment of the downtown Lazarus store. At 1 million square feet, the largest LEED certified renovation and reuse of a historic building to that time. One of Larry's great strengths has been that he has always understood the larger picture of economic development. He created the phrase theater-based community development. The month after the purchase of the Ohio Theater, Larry began work, also with Jay Beatley in the back there, on what would become known as Capital South Community Urban Redevelopment Corporation, which would rebuild the 3 blocks immediately south of our state capitol. Later, he would work on attracting Flying Tiger, the largest cargo air carrier at that time, which helped establish Rickenbacker Airport as a major international cargo hub. There is an expectation of those of us who are lawyers that we will serve our profession, and serve our community. Larry has. It has been an extraordinary 50 years. Well done, my friend.
It goes to show you, if you want a long introduction, just get somebody that knew you for the whole 50 years. 2 thoughts enter my mind, both dealing with support. Nobody does anything in life without support from other people. In my particular case, the Voorhees firm was so incredibly supportive of all of my efforts. outside the firm as well as inside. And my family, my wife Marion in particular, helped make it possible. So thank you.
Our next presenter is Jim Oliphant, presenting John Hartranft.
Back when I was trying lawsuits, I often said in final argument to the jury that it's relatively rare in life that we get a chance to do something really good. Well, this is one of my chances to do some good. I have a great honor of introducing my law partner for over 40 years, my occasional golf partner, and more importantly to me, my very good friend for a very long time, John Hartranft. I'm introducing someone who I know needs no introduction to this group. John has had an incredible career. He's always been a role model to me and others at Wright Harler and then Porter Wright, where we practiced together for years. John was a graduate of Harvard and the School Up North Law School, and started practicing, as these other distinguished gentlemen, in Columbus in 1967. I could stand up here for hours and go through some of the matters that John handled, but one jumps out at me and at many in the room. I remember back in the 80s, we all do, and the home state savings collapsed. The banks, John was appointed special counsel to the Attorney General's office in connection with the collapse and eventual liquidation and sale of home state savings, as well as liquidation and/or restructuring of 72 other privately insured savings and loan associations throughout Ohio. I remember, although that was not my field at all, I remember John and his team working on those matters for years, and I could go on and on. But where John also made a tremendous impact, he was about the smartest lawyer I ever knew, but where he made an impact and where everybody in this room I think knows John is in his contributions to our profession. Look, as many of you know, he has served on the OSBA Banking, Business, and Bankruptcy Law Committee since 1970. He chaired that. He was committee chair of the Columbus Bar Ethics Committee. He was on the Board of Governors of the Columbus Bar from 1994 to 2001 and served as president in 1999-2000. He has been chair of numerous CBA task forces, one on problems encountered by GLBT attorneys and clients. He has been a board member of the Legal Aid Society of Columbus. He received the CBA Bar Service Medal in 2009. He continues to serve this community. Just this morning, as he does every Tuesday, he volunteered his time at Legal Aid and came from Legal Aid to this luncheon. His career, I could go on, but his contributions to the profession and to our Bar Association are incredible. I am really honored and proud to be able to introduce John, who needs no introduction.
Chris Curry will now present to Fred Milligan.
Sorry, can you hear me with back with the drilling? It sounds like a dental office, doesn't it? I'm here to introduce Fred J. Milligan. To his friends, his clients, and to the people who love him. He's better known as Fritz Milligan. This man was born to be a lawyer. In fact, his father was a lawyer. The J in Fred J. Milligan stands for jurisprudence. I told you I was going to tell that joke. He's a graduate of Ohio State Law School. He joined his father's firm in forming Milliken & Milliken. And next year we're going to honor his brother too, Tim, who's also an attorney. It runs in the family. And they formed a firm called Milligan, Milligan & Milligan, which is shorter for Milton, et cetera, But they moved from Columbus to Westerville in 1973 because it was a growing market and was the right market for them. A very successful firm. They've handled plenty of clients. Fritz, outside the law, has a love for history. And his love for history can be shown through 2 books he's written about history in Ohio. He's also been the attorney for the Ohio Historical Society for over 40 years. He served on several committees, including the Westville Chamber of Commerce, which he was president at one time, the Central College Presbyterian Church, and Concord Counseling Services, along with other agencies. When I met Fritz a few years ago, I walked in and tried to buy his firm from him because I just retired. I was a 48-year-old retired guy, had nothing else to do. But he said, don't buy, why don't you just rent an office? You know, we'll teach you about Ohio law instead of federal law, which was the smartest thing ever happened to me. But I sit there nowadays, I think to myself, why couldn't God have blessed me 20 years ago to been in this room with these people? Fritz is one of the most capable, knowledgeable, skilled attorneys I've ever met. And as a JAG attorney, I've met thousands of attorneys. He's a mentor and he's my idol. Ladies and gentlemen, Fritz Milligan.
When I was growing up in an attorney's household, my dad always said and truly believed it was an honor to be an attorney. It took me a few years to appreciate that, but I sincerely believe it is an honor to have been able to be an attorney and helped other people for 50 years. Thank you.
Jerry Lippy was one of our honorees today, but unfortunately he was not able to attend, so we are honoring him as well in absentia. At this point, Rick Marsh, could you come forward to present to Stan Myers?
I worked for Fritz Milligan's father. Yeah. Stan Myers graduated from Ohio State University College of Law in 1967. Stan and I both graduated from Bexley High School, but I didn't know Stan then until he became a lawyer. And after he got to law school, he spent 2 years with what was sort of a boutique law firm, Tiford and Bernard. And I remember them, tried a number of cases against Bernie Bernard. Stan was there for a couple of years and then formed Federico, Myers and Enns with Steve Enns, who's already been honored here today. When that firm broke up, he spent 17 years as a partner with which was then Zach Sluper and Wolinitz. After he left there, Stan decided he could best serve people by representing plaintiffs who had ERISA disability claims. And that's what he did until his retirement about 4 years ago. Stan recently had the opportunity to have a case in the United States Supreme Court, and it was an ERISA case. And you'll have to ask him sometime about it because it's fascinating. And it's a case of Glenn versus MetLife, which became a seminal case with regard to the law that was involved. Stan's been in a wheelchair for a number of years. And Stan is the most optimistic person, one of the most optimistic persons I've ever met, and not just the most optimistic person in a wheelchair. Stan's optimistic, and in a way, he's both fatalistic about some of his physical disabilities. Stan's almost always represented plaintiffs, but there was a time when Stan represented some defendants. And I haven't discussed this with Stan. He doesn't know I'm going to tell this story on him, and I hope it's true because somebody else, a member of the bar, told me about it. Some of you may remember Anson Smith, Personal Service Insurance Company. Well, there are no loud groans, but maybe you don't remember it. Before it was Personal Service, it was Pioneer, and there were so many bad cases with the name of Pioneer Mutual Insurance Company, they changed the name to Personal Service so that there wouldn't be any more bad cases. Now they became bad cases against Personal Service. But Stan was doing some, for a short period of time, and nobody worked for Anson for very long. Stan, for a short period of time, did some defense work, and Stan was defending one of Anson's insureds. Person was claiming personal injury, and it was a case where the person was claiming injuries, and there wasn't much of an impact, and weren't any objective symptoms of disability or anything, but this person went on and on and on and on and on. And Stan, in frustration, after he cross-examined this person for quite some time, did what we're all told in trial work not to do. That's don't ask the question to which you don't know the answer. But every once in a while you have to do that because you have to. And Stan said, "Mr. Jones," as only Stan could, "Mr. Jones, how long is this foolishness going to last?" And Mr. Jones turned to Mr. Myers and said, "Mr. Myers, at least until the jury returns a verdict in this case." Stan got a good result. Stan Myers.
I hope the story doesn't bother you, but it's my favorite law story, and it's going to take a moment to tell you. As Rick said, I had a case in the Supreme Court of the United States. Well, I have Russian cousins who were elderly at that time, and I said to my cousin Dora, "Dora, I'm going to the Supreme Court." She said, "Call Anton." I said, "Excuse me?" She said, "Call Anton." I said, "Dora, how do you know Judge Scalia?" She said, "Who?" I said, "Judge Scalia." She says, "I don't know Judge Scalia." I said, "But you said call Anton." She said, "I did." "Your cousin Anton." I said, "What does my cousin Anton have to do with the Supreme Court?" She said, "Oh, he's one of Justice Roberts' law clerks." So I called my cousin Anton, who I'd never met, and he said, "Stan, I see on the docket that you're coming to the Supreme Court. Let me talk to the chief and see if we can talk." And he calls me back and he said, the chief says it would be fine. So my wife and I go to Washington and we get the non-public tour of the Supreme Court. Absolutely an impressive, impressive place. And the fascinating thing is the law clerks would call the highest court in the land the basketball court that's directly over and on top of the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land. And a couple of years later, I met Anton's father and I said to his father, I really don't understand. We're from a family of liberals. How did your son get so conservative? And he laughed at me and he said, you don't understand the chief. The chief has 4 law clerks, 3 very, very conservative and 1 very liberal, who teaches the other conservatives how to deflect the liberal arguments. And that's my Supreme Court story.
Our next presenter is Adele Shank, presenting to Professor John Quigley. Still on? Who's that? Adele Shank, presenting to Professor John Quigley.
Hello, can you hear me in the back? Is it working? Oh, good. All right, well, I'm going to start with, I think that I met John the same way at least a number of you in this room did, as my professor at The Ohio State University College of Law. The story goes on from there, but John began teaching at Ohio State University in 1969. He's been there continuing teaching law all these years and continues to teach even today. John has always been the person who represented the underdog. So while he was teaching, he also managed to take on a number of cases and causes and do good work for a number of people who otherwise might not have had a voice. One of the first cases that was conducted in the state of Ohio representing a lesbian custody suit was handled by John. They brought in an expert from New York. It was the first time, as far as I'm able to determine, that an expert witness came in to testify in a lesbian custody dispute that a lesbian home could serve the best interests of a child. That was in Newark, Ohio. He also did a lot of work during the Vietnam War with the National Lawyers Guild to try to end that conflict. He subsequently became the national vice president for the Lawyers Guild in the 1970s. While serving as a professor at OSU, he also acted as a student advisor for the Gay Activists Alliance in a time when LGB and gay activities were not looked upon with favor. John took on the job and helped those students feel safe and accepted in the university environment. He's done a number of things in the international arena. Those of you who were his students know he did criminal law, comparative law, and international law. Among those events were when he was invited to be an expert witness in the trial of Pol Pot in Cambodia. Most of you, I think, remember the outcome of that trial. Pol Pot's genocide of the people of that country was condemned. He's raised international human rights violations cases before the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, particularly in death penalty cases. He's had a long interest in the political and conflict matters in the Middle East. He's written a number of books on the topic, and I'll spare you the list, but look him up sometime. He, at Great Britain's request, represented the Palestinian government in their request to make the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem a World Heritage Site, and that bid was successful. I apologize. It's hard when you're doing a list this long and trying to be short. He was given the Distinguished Professor Award by Gordon Gee and the Ohio State University in 1995. That's a bigger deal than it sounds like because he was the Distinguished Professor for the entire university. We were lucky enough to be able to attend that particular event. John is a linguist. While he was at Harvard, he took a year and went to the Soviet Union to study Russian. His translation of the Russian Merchant Shipping Code is still used as a resource in many classes today, and his book, The Soviet Legal Innovation and the Law of the Western World, is presently being translated into Chinese, so it survived many rounds of evaluation. Besides the books that I've already mentioned, he's a widely published author in law journals and academic circles. He continues with his work today. He acts as an expert witness on international law and has done so in several federal cases, including here in Ohio. He right now is working on another book, even as he's teaching his classes, that studies consular law and the death penalty and how the violation of that consular right of access has contributed to wrongful convictions in the United States. Finally, I must say, I think you may well have guessed that I met him at Ohio State University Law School. I waited until I was finished with his class, and he was always an early riser and at school very early. And I went and knocked on the door one morning and said, "Professor, would you like to have coffee with me?" The story ends with us being married. We have 2 beautiful children. He's a wonderful guy. He stands up for everyone who needs help, even when no one else will. John Quigley.
I'm very proud to be the second most important lawyer in our household. Adele has half of the Ohio death row as her clientele. That's what I call heavy lifting.
Brooke Schumann will now present to Bill Schumann.
I'm here to present my dad, Bill Schumann. Thank you very much. 50 years is a long time. I look at Dad, and I see his qualities as a person, and I see his profession. I see, well, that figures. He's a lawyer. Among the many things I see about Dad, Dad is argumentative, and I mean that in a good way. He loves to argue. He's a great advocate for himself, for other people. And along that lines, I did over the years, some of you have kids and maybe they've worked for you in the courthouse, and I did some clerking for him over the years. And one thing led to another, and I know you never mess around with a lawyer's billing records, and I think I used one check for 3 clients. He was not too happy. We got into a big blowout argument in the middle of the courthouse, but then I realized we had at it, but after a while I realized that was just a typical Tuesday in the courthouse. You see that all the time. But the one thing I noticed about Dad, among his many qualities, he is a people person. As I would go around with him, even when I was younger and even when I was doing that clerking, he knew, in addition to being a lawyer, he also served 2 years in the Army, and he knew kind of like who ran the show. He knew the NCOs, he knew the clerks, he knew all the people who made stuff go, and he really treated them well. He knew their names, and he's been in private practice for the majority of his 50 years. And that brings us here today, and he's done a really good job his whole life serving his clients as best he could. And on behalf of our family, Dad, we just want to congratulate you on 50 great years, and to all the nominees, or all the other honorees as well. Congratulations. Thank you.
Just say a couple of words here. I always like to fashion myself as having a high mediocre legal career. That's how I put it. I think over the life of my practice, which has been a private practice for the most part, I've always tried to serve people to the best of my ability and with a measure of grace and professionalism. And I'm proud of that, and I think everybody I've heard today is the same. I might say one thing. I've noticed that there's 3 or 4 of us here that are the alumni of the T-Ford Bernard Law Firm. And the fact that we've survived 50 years is an absolute miracle.
Leon Friedberg will be presenting to Larry Sturtz.
My name is Leon Friedberg, and I came to meet Larry Sturtz in 1999 when I joined the Carlisle Patchen firm. He'd been there for, 10 or 11 years or so. I came to know him very well. We worked on cases together until he left in 2002 to pursue some other interests that were non-legal and has since returned. I have been asked to be brief, something which is very difficult, and so I will not talk about the fact that Larry, during the first 20 or 25 years of his career, spent his life defending First Amendment rights and became very famous in Columbus for a number of reasons, very publicly famous, for defending, among others, prostitutes, dozens, if not hundreds, of prostitute cases, which he took to trial and never lost a single case. I'm not going to talk about the fact that he then spent another 10 or so years working on complex business litigation, then spent a time in hiatus from the practice of law where he was actually running businesses himself and still is on the board of a publicly traded company as a businessman. I'm not going to talk about the special pride that he has in some of the things that he's done that really no one knows about. For example, because of his blood type of positive, he's spent decades as a blood donor for Children's Hospital. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about the fact that he has spent years of his life supporting the homeless and the needy, including serving in leadership and on the board at the Faith Mission, and as a fundraiser committee of one, raising almost $500,000 for Faith Mission's men's and women's facilities. I'm not going to spend time on that. I'm not going to dwell on the fact that he's also an author, having published a book called Snitches, which was based on one of the cases that he was involved in. And I'm not going to spend time dwelling on the fact that his wife Mo and his 5 children and 12 grandchildren are the apples of his eye, and that it's impossible to have a conversation with him longer than 8 minutes, at which point he will raise the fact that he has these wonderful grandchildren and his lovely family. Instead, I'm going to take a cue from some of the other presenters today and pretend that I am Craig Sturtz, his son. Craig was not able to be here, and he shared with me some thoughts that he'd hoped I'd be able to incorporate. And frankly, Craig did such a beautiful job of extolling the virtues and capturing the characteristics of Larry, both as a practitioner and a human being, that, if I may, I'm going to pretend that I'm Craig and read his letter verbatim. Craig has been a lawyer for 25 years. He's an environmental lawyer now. And so he's had a chance to see the perspective that his father has both created and shared with him. These are Craig's words. It started for me in law school and then in job interviews, court status conferences, judge receptions, case negotiations, bar association events, and in the elevator when I simply look familiar. Are you Larry Sturtz's son? I can always very proudly respond, I am. And then came the stories, peppered with comments of professionalism, honesty, aggressiveness, unparalleled strategy, and utmost respect. Your dad is the best litigator I know, many commended. And on a few occasions, I would be asked, are you familiar with his love tub case? For those of you who are not laughing, see me afterwards. Craig goes on, I am now. My dad was and undoubtedly remains a pillar of the legal community. He is a true defender of the U.S. Constitution and promoter of civil liberties, no matter what the cause or issue. Very few love the practice of law as much and did it with such passion as he. He was never afraid to pave new ground, whether at the cutting edge of environmental law representing the original National Groundwater Association, endlessly defending the protections afforded by the First Amendment, or taking on a court appointment to defend the most serious of criminal cases. All of this in addition to Dad's regular corporate legal practice. Every great lawyer also has a great heart, and his heart was with too many nonprofit organizations to count. Although Dad's passions were helping the homeless through Make Room Columbus and helping those with physical and developmental disabilities through Recreation Unlimited. Through this, my dad taught me and many of his associates what it means to zealously represent clients and do it ethically, honestly, and with unparalleled professionalism. And he lives by example what it means to give back to the community, a true role model for me. Congratulations, Dad, on your distinguished accomplishment and for leaving an extraordinary mark on all of us in the Columbus legal community. And please continue your great work with battling homelessness and helping those in need. I wish Larry had paid for my tuition. Without one reservation, congratulations, and I'm very proud to be your presenter. Larry Sturtz.
I just want to say it's an honor to have practiced with so many of you in this room. It's an honor to be an attorney. It's an honor I hold with great pride. My family is with me today at our table, and they make me proud every day. Thank you very much.
Jessica Whitlock to present to Scott Whitlock.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jessica. I'm Scott Whitlock's daughter. Can you all hear me? Very good. Okay, so I've known about this event for about a month. I wrote a speech at 8:45 this morning. Sorry, Dad. Also, I realized because of our last name, we're the last, so this might be a little too long. I'm just going to ad-lib it. Again, apologies. When my dad was being initiated into the Rotary Board, they asked him for a short summary of his career. And we actually went over it on the phone together. And we got his 50 years down to 4 words. Law, cars, law, golf. I guess I have a few more minutes, bear with me. So he started his career at Voice Seder Seymour and Pease. And when he was there, when I was growing up, the thing I heard about most wasn't actually something he was supposed to be doing. Mr. Fisher, he got caught up in Mr. Fisher's vortex. Mr. Fisher took him to the meeting when they were talking about how to save the Ohio. My dad didn't even want to go. He had dinner plans with my mom. But it was like, okay, I've got to, I'll go. So he went. And then they spent so much time saving the Ohio. They worked really hard. There was one time when the upstairs flooded and you climbed up the catwalk and they were bailing water out, and the ladies were at home like, these are lawyers. This is not what we signed up for. Hope they have good balance. Do any of you remember Webb Voorhees? This is my favorite quote from him. So my dad and Mr. Fisher are doing all of this on the Ohio. And my dad's a little worried. You know, he's a young lawyer. He's not putting in maybe as many billable hours as he needs to. And one day, Mr. Voorhees is walking down the hall and crosses paths with my dad. And this is what he says about the Ohio Theater. You know you're going to lose. You're doing the right thing. Keep it up. I think that in all of my dad's career, whether at Voorhees, at Honda, back at Voorhees in private practice, he's always tried to do the right thing. He has been a great mentor to so many young lawyers and a great leader everywhere he's been. I'm so proud of him today, and I'm so happy to have the opportunity to introduce my father, Scott Whitlock. Congratulations, Scott.
Just one moment of appreciation and challenge. I am really honored to be able to say that I am a third-generation lawyer on my mother's side. 84 years ago, when she graduated at the top of her class at the University of Illinois, law firms in Chicago would not hire women. She instead went to work for a company called Commerce Clearinghouse and was able to be the editor of their first state sales tax reporter. She would have been a great lawyer in private practice. I look at the list here. We do not have women here today at this event being honored for 50 years of service. But that is going to change. And I am appreciative very much of our profession that is making that change, embracing that change, and giving women the equal opportunity to serve with all of us men. Thank you all.
Jessica was correct. That's our final honoree. What an amazing collection of lawyers and human beings. Can you believe the variety and the accomplishments and the humanity that we just witnessed here today? Unbelievable. So if you could, let's give all of our honorees one final round of applause. And we've asked so much of them over the last 50 years, but we need to ask them one more thing. If they would all gather in the back when we adjourn here today, we'd like to take a class picture. So if you would all do that, that would be wonderful. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.